Would you like to be the kind of man who doesn't need to look at porn? Well, today on Finding Traction, we talk about becoming that man. Well, recently I finished rereading one of my favorite recovery books, especially on porn addiction. The book is called Surfing for God by Michael John Cusick. And I'd interviewed him actually a number of episodes back regarding chapter 4 of his book, which was all about kind of the embedded lies that porn offers. But in his final chapter, he makes this statement, and he talks about being the kind of man who doesn't need to look at porn. Now, I love that phrase, doesn't need to look at porn. You know, it's interesting. He doesn't say the kind of man who wants to look at porn. You know, I'm not there. There will always be a part of me that wants to look at porn. I'm still hoping that goes away, but I'm not holding my breath. And I think for most of us, that's probably not realistic. Reminds me of a buddy of mine who struggles with alcohol, and he loves single malt or, I don't know, double malt whiskey or whatever it is. And he describes the taste of it, the smell of it, how it looks when he pours it, and how he swirls it around the glass. And he just says, the only problem is I can't drink it because if I start drinking it, I just can't stop. And so he hasn't lost his desire to drink whiskey, for example. So there's a distinction between the man who wants to look at porn and the man who needs to look at porn. Now that's different. When you're talking about the need to look at porn, then you're dealing with the deeper root causes, the things that in one sense are behind your compulsions, those undercurrents that seek, that undertow that seeks to pull you away, and why that is. And it's interesting, this is the final chapter of his book. Cusick, he describes really 5 different ways of examining what is behind those inner motivations, compulsions, and deeper needs. Here's what he says that you have to look at if you're going to deal with these things. First one, he says this: how well do you understand the root issues as to why you struggle with porn? So what are those underlying root issues which have set you up for this struggle? Because not everybody experiences a struggle like you do. The second one, how well do you recognize the empty promises that porn makes to you as a substitute for your God-given desires? Now that one's interesting because, again, that goes back to that interview I did with him from chapter 4 of the book. Those empty promises, those false beliefs that are under the allure of porn. 3 is this: how well have you come to grips with your own brokenness and you resist shame's hold or grip on your soul? That's a really important one, this whole idea of understanding shame. 4 is how effective are you at recognizing the lies you believe and living out of your God-given new heart. And the last one is how well are you at learning to care for your own soul? Now, if you go back over those 5 areas, you'll see that they're much more internal than they are external. They're, and those, it's not that external things aren't important to look at. I wrote the whole Finding Traction course, and when I started it, I was aware that we needed to look at some external things. Yeah, you got to understand some of the brain science things. You need to understand things like triggers. You need to understand boundaries and the role that technology plays in your struggle. You need to create a plan. Those are all obvious and good and just common sense things that you're going to have to deal with as you seek to walk away from porn in your life. But I've used the analogy, those are just the ways that you're trying to turn the car engine off, practical ways. But then you've got to start understanding and looking at the deeper reasons behind what's going on in your life. And if you don't deal with those, you're simply putting a Band-Aid over an infected wound. And that's why in the course we call it holistic. We're dealing with not just some of the knowledge and external things that we have to, but then we get to look to some of those deeper areas that are behind our wrestles. Some of that perhaps we can start with by asking questions of ourselves. But I actually think it's way more effective when we're asking those questions in community. What are the things that really drive? When we begin to bounce ideas back off each other, we learn to tell our story. You can't, for example, get rid of the grip of shame by just doing it on your own. It's like trying to have one hand clapping and it just doesn't work. Shame is a community aspect that you need to slay together. That's just one example of how the community comes in. It'd be a little bit like trying to, if you didn't have a mirror or somebody else and somebody asks you, what are the color of your eyes? And you're going, I don't know. I see through my eyes. I can't tell you what the color of my eyes are. And I think that's why this sort of work is best done in community. Recently I received an email from a fellow who's been taking the traction course. His name is Dave. He said I could use his first name. He's from the UK. And he wrote me an email about the effect of the course. And I want you to listen for a few of the different aspects that are going on in his journey. It just was such a tremendously encouraging email from me. Listen to what he wrote. He said, "Hi, Vern. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to say a huge thank you for everything you're doing to support those in porn recovery. I feel like I'm in a more hopeful place than I've been in years, and am fast approaching my longest ever streak of being porn and masturbation free. A huge part of that is down to your podcast and the Finding Traction course. I'm working through the first part of the course with my accountability partner, who's also signed up recently. It's been so helpful for us in giving us practical steps, unmasking what's going on behind our behaviors. There you go in terms of the underlying stuff, and helping us be more vulnerable with each other." I mean, he's really hit those three areas, the areas of knowledge, the areas of community, and then the areas of healing. He goes on and says, "We've still got 6 or so weeks to go, but we'll be definitely signing up for the rest of the course as well." I'm not sure if it was you or Matt on Porn Free Radio who used the illustration of needing a Sherpa guide in our recovery. Probably both did. But the picture of someone climbing the mountain and hammering in the pegs for those following behind comes to mind. By the way, that is your own example, Dave, because that's an extension of the Sherpa guide thing. But I love that imagery of us pounding in pegs into an unscalable mountain that others then can use to climb that same rock face. Your hard work allows those following you to journey the same path more easily and give solid points to anchor themselves to. And that's what it's felt like to me. Finding your material has literally been a lifeline for me and shown me I'm not alone in this. I know there's a long road ahead, but now I'm walking with hope. Thank you so much, Dave. Again, if you look back at that email, you see the fact that not only is he engaging with the material, he's looking at the underlying causes, he's doing it in community, and because of that, he says he's experiencing hope in a new way that has so far eluded them to this point. So, Dave, thank you for the encouragement there. Just a great email. I would just want to encourage you, if you want to take the course, I encourage you to go on the website bandofbrothers.care, and you can look at an example from week 1. Even better, I would hope that you would be willing to do the course with somebody else. Maybe you can talk another buddy into doing the course together like Dave did. Maybe you say, I don't know anybody to do the course with. Then get a hold of me, Band of Brothers at shaw.ca. We're starting new Zoom groups. We're going to be starting one next week. It's January 2021 when I'm doing this. And next week, I think it's either going to be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday night. We're working on the timing. And of course, depending on your time zone will depend on what time you can connect with our Zoom group. But in that group, we go through the material, and then we really begin to cement it in our lives together with similar-hearted guys. So if you want to be a part of that, to do the course, if you want to learn together with a type of guys, I'd love you to join us in that. So here's to being the kind of guy who does not need to look at porn. See you next time.